Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready to dive into some Hollywood drama?
Always.
This one's a doozy. You guys send us so much stuff on the It Ends With Us movie controversy. I mean, we've got news articles, legal documents, even statements from Colleen Hoover herself.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to unpack, so we're here to help you make sense of it all.
And it's not just like your average celebrity feud, you know.
Right.
We're talking about some pretty serious accusations of misconduct,
Yeah.
a possible PR smear campaign,
Uh-huh.
and even how sensitive topics like domestic violence are handled on and off screen.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just gossip, that's for sure. So for anyone who hasn't been following every single update, let's do a quick recap. It Ends With Us, the movie, based on Colleen Hoover's book.
Huge bestseller,
Big hit came out earlier this year, starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
who also directed.
Right, he directed it too. It did really well at the box office, but
Yeah.
behind the scenes, well, let's just say things weren't so picture perfect.
And what's interesting is that even before any legal stuff came out,
Right.
there were already signs that something was off. Remember how Lively and Baldoni never did any of those promo events together?
True.
And even when they talked about the film, especially about the domestic violence themes, they seemed to be saying totally different things. Almost like they weren't even talking about the same movie.
It's true. Those early warning signs were hard to miss. And of course, the fans on social media picked up on it right away.
Oh, yeah.
Unfollows, cryptic comments. The internet was buzzing with theories.
For sure.
But all of that online chatter was just the tip of the iceberg because Blake Lively filed a formal complaint with the California Civil Rights Department.
Ooh. And that's not something to take lightly.
Right.
That's a pretty big legal move. It's not a lawsuit yet,
Yeah.
but it can actually lead to a full-blown investigation.
So it's like a power move,
Okay.
a way to apply some pressure and get things moving.
Exactly. And it gets even more intense when you look at the specifics of Lively's complaint.
Okay.
She's alleging sexual harassment against Baldoni. And get this, she's claiming that he and Wayfarer Studios...
Also the studio.
Yes, Wayfarer Studios actually orchestrated a smear campaign to trash her reputation after she raised these concerns.
Hold on. So we're not just talking about on-set disagreements here.
No.
This is about power, reputation,
Yes.
and potentially illegal actions.
Precisely.
Right?
And it really shines a light on some important questions.
Like what?
How common are these sorts of PR tactics in Hollywood?
Right.
Are we as an audience too quick to believe these carefully crafted narratives? It's about more than just this one film. It's about the whole system.
It definitely makes you wonder what really goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood. So, okay, let's dig into Lively's complaint, what she demanded during that January 4th meeting with Baldoni.
Oh, this is where it gets juicy.
I know, right? Ryan Reynolds was even there.
Oh, wow.
These weren't just, like little requests.
Right.
These demands paint a very disturbing picture of what that work environment was allegedly like.
Yeah. Some of those demands point to behavior that goes way beyond just your typical on-set tension.
Yeah.
For instance, the complaint states that Lively requested no more unsolicited discussions about genitalia. I know, right? And demanded that Baldoni stop making comments about her deceased father.
Oh my God.
If this is true, these demands raise huge red flags about the power dynamics and the level of unprofessionalism on set.
That's crazy. It's shocking that that would even be happening on a professional film set.
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be like basic levels of respect and boundaries no matter what your position is?
Absolutely. And Lively's demands get even more specific
Okay.
and disturbing. She reportedly insisted that only working actors be allowed to participate in nude scenes,
Wow.
further highlighting this potential lack of professional boundaries.
This is making me rethink how I see all that behind the scenes drama. It's not just petty arguments anymore.
Yeah.
These demands are pointing to a potentially toxic work environment, and we're just scratching the surface here. What else does Lively's complaint reveal about this alleged harassment?
Well, her demands suggest that there were inappropriate conversations,
Okay.
unwanted physical contact, and even violations of her personal space.
Hold on, let's break that down because this is serious stuff. What kind of inappropriate conversations are we talking about?
So, for instance, Lively claimed that both Baldoni and Heath, another producer on the film,
Okay.
would frequently discuss their personal sexual experiences in front of her and others.
No way.
Yeah. And she specifically requested that this type of conversation stop.
Well, yeah, I can see why. It just seems so unprofessional.
It definitely crosses the line.
Yeah.
And remember, this is all coming from her legal complaint.
Right.
So these are serious accusations that shouldn't be taken lightly.
Okay. So, inappropriate conversations, check. What about unwanted physical contact? What exactly was she alleging there?
So Lively also demanded that Baldoni and Heath refrain from any unsolicited physical touching or sexual comments directed at her.
Oh.
This suggests that there were instances of physical contact that made her feel uncomfortable, which, let's be clear, is a huge red flag when it comes to defining harassment.
Absolutely. And this is even more disturbing when you consider that Lively had just given birth to her fourth child.
Right.
She was in a vulnerable position both physically and emotionally. And according to her complaint, Baldoni was making inquiries about her weight to her trainer without her consent.
Oh.
That just seems so out of line.
It is, and this alleged behavior extended beyond comments about her weight.
Okay.
Lively claimed that both Baldoni and Heath would frequently enter her trailer uninvited while she was undressed, even during times when she was breastfeeding.
Seriously?
Yeah, this is a clear violation of her privacy.
That goes way beyond unprofessional. It's a complete disregard for her boundaries and her personal space.
Exactly. And all of these demands taken together paint a very troubling picture of the environment on set.
It's a lot to process. And we haven't even gotten to the alleged smear campaign yet.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other layer to this story.
Okay, let's take a breath for a second and then we'll dive into the details of that alleged campaign, because if what we've heard so far is true, things are about to get even more complicated. Okay, so let's talk about this alleged smear campaign, because this is where things get really murky. Lively's complaint mentioned some pretty damning evidence, specifically text messages between Baldoni's PR team that suggest a calculated effort to, damage her reputation.
Yeah. This is where the story goes from alleged on-set misconduct to something potentially even more sinister. We're talking about deliberate manipulation of public opinion.
Right.
And those text messages, if they're authentic, offer a chilling glimpse into how these tactics actually work.
Yeah, it's not just vague accusations either. We're talking about actual messages where they're discussing how to bury Lively and control the narrative online. It's kind of scary how confident they seem in their ability to manipulate public perception.
It is. One quote that really stands out from those messages is, we can bury anyone. It speaks to a level of arrogance and a disregard for the truth that it's pretty unsettling, to say the least.
That line definitely sent chills down my spine. It makes you wonder how often these kinds of tactics are used in Hollywood. Do PR teams routinely resort to these underhanded methods to protect their clients?
It's hard to say for sure how widespread these practices are, but this case definitely raises some important questions about ethics in PR, and it highlights the power of social media to shape public opinion, even when that opinion is based on carefully constructed narratives.
Right, because most people get their news and information online these days. So if a PR team is successfully manipulating what people see and read about a particular person or situation, they're essentially controlling the narrative.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why it's so crucial to be critical consumers of information. We have to be aware that what we see online, especially when it comes to celebrity news, is often carefully curated and presented in a way that benefits a particular party.
This whole situation has me thinking twice about everything I read online now. But let's focus on the specific tactics that were allegedly discussed in those text messages. What kinds of things were they suggesting to discredit Lively?
Well, they talked about planting stories that portrayed her as difficult to work with, unreliable, and even unstable. They also discussed leveraging social media to spread negative rumors and encourage negative sentiment towards her.
So basically, they were trying to create a perception that she was the problem, not Baldoni.
Right. They were attempting to shift the blame and undermine her credibility so that any allegations she made would be dismissed as the ramblings of a disgruntled actress.
And this is where the term astroturfing comes in, right?
Exactly. Astroturfing is a tactic where PR teams or other interested parties create fake grassroots movements or online campaigns to make it seem like there's widespread public support for a particular viewpoint. In this case, it seems they were trying to create the impression that there was a groundswell of negative opinion against Lively.
So basically manipulating people into thinking that everyone else is already on board with their agenda. That's pretty sneaky.
It is. And it's a tactic that's becoming increasingly common in the age of social media. It's easy to create fake accounts, spread misinformation, and manipulate algorithms to push certain narratives.
Wow. This is really eye-opening. It makes you wonder how much of what we see online is actually genuine and how much is carefully orchestrated manipulation.
It's a valid concern. And in this particular case, the stakes are incredibly high. We're not just talking about someone's reputation. We're talking about their career, their livelihood, their ability to continue working in their chosen field.
It's a lot of power to wield, and it seems like Baldoni's PR team wasn't afraid to use it. But speaking of power, we can't forget about Colleen Hoover, the author of the book. She made a public statement in support of Lively, and that adds another layer of complexity to this whole situation.
It's unusual for an author to get so involved in behind-the-scenes drama, especially when it involves such serious allegations. So what do you think her statement signifies?
Well, to me, it suggests that she's deeply troubled by what transpired on the set of her book's adaptation. It's like she's not just taking sides. She's taking a stand against the alleged misconduct itself.
That's a good point. And considering that her book deals with sensitive themes like domestic violence, her statement carries even more weight. It suggests she's not willing to stay silent when she sees those themes potentially being mishandled or minimized.
Right, and she's not just defending Lively. She's praising her honesty and integrity, which, let's face it, directly contradicts the image that Baldoni's team is trying to paint.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Hoover created these characters. She knows their essence, and in her view, Lively embodied that essence authentically. That kind of validation from the source material's creator is hard to ignore.
It definitely throws a wrench into Baldoni's team's narrative. So we've got Lively alleging harassment and a smear campaign backed up by those text messages. We've got Baldoni denying everything. But so far, we haven't seen any concrete evidence to support his side of the story. And then we have Colleen Hoover, the author, stepping into the fray and publicly supporting Lively. It's a tangled web for sure.
It is. And it raises a lot of questions about the systems at play in Hollywood. How are these kinds of situations typically handled? Who has the power and how is that power wielded? What are the ethical boundaries when it comes to PR and shaping public perception?
It's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about the entertainment industry. But before we get too deep into the systemic issues, let's hear what Baldoni has to say for himself, because so far we've only heard his side of the story through his attorney.
Right. His response to these allegations is crucial, and it could have significant impact on how this whole saga unfolds.
Okay, let's dive into Baldoni's response and see if he can offer any evidence to back up his denials. Because right now, things aren't looking too good for him. All right. So we've heard Lively's side, but what about Baldoni? What does he have to say about all of this? Yeah. His attorney, Brian Friedman, issued a statement denying everything, calling the allegations false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious. But is that enough to, counter Lively's complaint and those text messages?
Well, blanket denial is a pretty common first step in these situations, but it needs to be backed up with some actual evidence.
Ooh.
Baldoni's attorney is also claiming that Lively was actually the one making threats and demands.
Okay.
And that Wayfarer Studios only hired that crisis management team to ensure balanced and factual reporting. The classic strategy trying to flip the script and portray Lively as the aggressor.
I see what you mean. It's like they're trying to say that Lively's the one causing trouble and Baldoni's just the innocent victim. But if that's the case, why not just address those threats through legal channels right away? Why even involve a crisis management team with a reputation for, well, let's just say, aggressive tactics?
That's a great point. If Lively was really being unreasonable and making threats, why not handle that through the proper legal procedures? Hiring a firm known for their, hardball tactics suggests a different motive, maybe, to control the narrative and protect Baldoni's image no matter what.
It does seem a little extreme if all they wanted was balanced reporting. It makes you wonder if they actually have any evidence to support those claims about Lively's behavior.
Exactly. If they have proof that Lively was the one instigating the conflict, now would be the time to show it. Otherwise, their claims just start to look like an attempt to deflect attention from the serious allegations against Baldoni.
Okay, so it's kind of like a he said, she said situation right now, but we can't forget about Colleen Hoover's statement supporting Lively. That really throws a wrench into the whole Lively's the problem narrative, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Hoover's statement is incredibly significant. First of all, it's super unusual for an author to get involved in this kind of behind-the-scenes drama, especially when it involves such serious allegations. It suggests that she's really concerned about what happened on the set of her book's adaptation.
Right. It's not like she's just watching this all play out from the sidelines. She's actively choosing to stand with Lively, which speaks volumes. And it's not even just that she's supporting Lively. She's specifically praising her honesty and integrity, which are qualities that directly contradict what Baldoni's team is trying to say.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Hoover created these characters and this story. She knows their essence, and she believes that Lively captured that essence authentically. That kind of validation from the source material's creator is hard to ignore.
So where does this leave us? We have accusations, denials, a potential smear campaign, and the author herself weighing in. What happens next?
Well, now that Lively's filed her complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, they're going to conduct an investigation. We'll have to wait and see what they find and what conclusions they draw. It's also possible that other people involved in the production might come forward with their own stories, which would make things even more complicated.
It's definitely a situation that's still unfolding and could have some major consequences. Regardless of what happens with the investigation, this case has already brought up some important questions about power dynamics in Hollywood.
For sure.
The ethics of PR tactics and how vulnerable our reputations are in the age of social media.
Yeah. It reminds us that there's often a lot more to the story than what we see on the surface. And it challenges us to think critically, to question the narratives that we're given, and to remember that everyone involved has an agenda.
Well said. So, as this whole "It Ends With Us" saga continues to unfold, remember to stay informed, consider all sides of the story, and be aware of how information can be manipulated.
And maybe the most important question to leave our listeners with is this.
What?
In a world where we're bombarded with information and carefully crafted stories, how can you make sure that you're getting the full picture? Because sometimes the most important information is what's left unsaid, those whispers behind the headlines.
That's a great point to end on. We encourage everyone listening to keep digging into this complex situation and to come to your own conclusions based on the evidence. And remember, as always, the truth is out there, but sometimes it takes a little work to find it. So that's it for our deep dive this week. We'll be back soon with another juicy story from the world of pop culture. Thanks for listening, everyone.